Viewers, look into my eyes. What do you see there? Death? Because if you do, I've got something that'll clear that right up. Greetings, everyone. I'm your host, Sean Cardeveld, and this is a Monstrous October. On today's episode, we'll be taking a look at the first true leading lady of the Universal Monster series. And no, the bride doesn't count. She may be in the title, but she shows up in the film itself for all of 5 minutes, and that is not a lead role in my book. So, let us travel to the distaff side of horror with Dracula's Daughter.
Dracula! He's come back!
Sander, look at me. What do you see in my eyes?
Death.
Do you like jewels, Lily? This is very old and very beautiful.
Please don't come any closer.
Her pulse is weak, Dr. Goss. Growing weaker. All your skill can't help her now. She's under a spell that can be broken only by me. Or death. I am Dracula's daughter.
Considering how often later sequels in the Universal Monster series seem to fall back on simply rehashing old plots again and again, as we will all too soon see for ourselves, it's interesting to note how the first 2 sequels in the series went out of their way to avoid this approach. Furthermore, unlike The Bride of Frankenstein, Daughter of Dracula is not in fact based on any specific pre-existing material, and instead weaves a more or less original tale. In my review of the original 1931 Dracula, I talked about how influential a film it was, and that's no less true for its sequel either. Daughter of Dracula may not be as well remembered in the larger public consciousness, which is a shame, but one only need to watch it to see just how many other films and other material over the years have since taken inspiration from it. The story picks up in the immediate aftermath of the 1931 Dracula, with Van Helsing being discovered by the police along with the bodies of Renfield and Dracula. Mina and John Harker conveniently do not appear, nor are they referenced at any point in the film. Naturally enough, the police do not believe Van Helsing's tales of Dracula being a vampire, but fortunately for him, Countess Myra Zaleska, the film's titular daughter, chooses this point to make the scene and steal the dearly departed Count's body so she may burn it. For you see, unlike her father, Mariah despises her vampiric nature, and spends much of the film trying to find a cure, or barring that, a method of controlling her infernal hunger. Ultimately, however, this proves to be futile, and following the realization that she will never be free of her curse, Mariah returns to her ancestral home of Transylvania with the lady love of the doctor who was attempting to help her in tow. Mariah does this in the hopes of luring said doctor to her, so she can convert him into a vampire who then will become her eternal lover. And so the stage is set for a final confrontation between the forces of humanity and the Daughter of Dracula. Gloria Holden as Myra is easily one of the standouts of the film, and perhaps the best thing I can say about her performance is just how favorably it compares to Lugosi's in the original. Which is not to say she simply copies Lugosi's performance. Indeed, she brings her own energy and tics to the role. She's a more sympathetic figure overall also than her so-called father, and it makes her a far more interesting and engaging character as a result. It's not hard to see how and why the character ended up inspiring so many others in the years to come, including famed vampire writer Anne Rice. Indeed, as far as I can tell, Daughter is the first major example of the now familiar and well-worn trope of the vampire who loathes their own existence, and as such, countless novels, TV shows, movies, and more owe it a debt of gratitude. Nor is Holden the only memorable performance in Daughter, with her servant Sandor, played by Irving Pitchell, being another particularly noteworthy example. I said that Holden did not simply recreate Lugosi's take on Dracula, and that may be in part because with Pitchell around, she didn't feel she had to. Pitchell has a remarkable screen presence throughout Dracula's Daughter, and like Lugosi in the original Dracula, all he needs to do is stare into the camera silently to create a sense of unease and uncomfortableness in the audience. Rounding out the cast, Marguerite Churchill and Otto Kruger have some of the best chemistry of any leads featured in the Universal Monster films, while Edward Van Sloan as Professor Von Helsing brings his usual charm and dignity to his final appearance in the Universal Monster series. In terms of production values, Daughter of Dracula is respectable enough, with director Lambert Hillier giving a workmanlike effort overall. Myra, for the most part, keeps her use of traditional vampiric powers off-screen, which means modern viewers will be spared some of the hokier effects of the original Dracula. I'm looking at you, obvious rubber bat on a wire. Of course, this was likely a budget-saving decision, but fortunately the acting and writing in Daughter are strong enough to keep an audience's attention without the need for a lot of flash and dazzle. Indeed, Daughter of Dracula is one of the more substantive entries into the Universal Monster canon, and one of the few sequels in the series that can truly stand toe-to-toe with its original in terms of quality. Admittedly, some of the film's more overt attempts at comedy, particularly early on, have a tendency to fall flat, and from a modern perspective, its negative subtext towards lesbianism is also discomforting. Still, these end up being fairly minor complaints in light of the film's overall strength, and I have no qualms about giving the film a recommendation of must-see. If you've never viewed Daughter of Dracula before now, and odds are good you probably haven't, then this October is the perfect time to do so. And that's it for this episode of A Monstrous October. Come back tomorrow when we move to the other side of the gender line with a look at a son instead of a daughter. Oh, not Dracula's son, mind you. Thankfully, it's a while yet before we have to deal with him. But instead, the son of Frankenstein.